In this tutorial, we're going to introduce the basic concepts and get you familiar with the tools that you need to start working with auto layout in Xcode. First, what is auto layout? Auto layout is a system that lets you lay out your app's user interface by creating a mathematical description of the relationships between the elements. Now, if that definition doesn't quite make sense to you yet, don't worry, we'll go into more detail later, as well as a screencast showing you how to get up and running with auto layout in Xcode. So, why auto layout? The main difference between auto layout and the other options that were predominantly used before auto layout was included in Xcode is that auto layout allows you to be more flexible. The relationships and calculated values are better suited for working across multiple device sizes. It used to be true that there were a limited number of Apple products, and if you were designing for an iPhone, you were designing for one size. But these days, there are a lot more different device sizes that are still being used out in the real world. And it's nice as a developer to not have to manually adjust the values and placements of everything on every screen to be sure that it will fit and work for everyone on different devices. So let's take a closer look at how this works. So here you see we've got this very simple screen that we want to create. It's got two main areas and a nice border between each of the objects as well as from the edge of the screen. So if we wanted to do this without auto layout, you might do something similar to this in either Swift or Objective-C. So here you can see we're explicitly setting values for each of these four aspects of our objects: the height, the width, the X position, and the Y position. And those are, of course, referring to the location of the origin of the object, which is located in the upper left-hand corner. Our layout looks exactly the way we want it. But now what happens if we need to support another screen size? Well, this is something that could happen. Our values that we're setting haven't changed. But because the screen size has changed, our values no longer give us the effect that we want. Now, because we already told Object 1 and Object 2 that they're both 400 wide, they're wider than the screen that they're supposed to fit on. In fact, they're so wide they no longer even fit on the slides. This is a problem. Without auto layout, you would have to know what all the possible screen sizes are, and you would have to assign different values depending on which screen resolution you're using. This is where auto layout comes in and saves the day. So let's go back to the original layout that we had, but this time, let's see how to set it up with auto layout. So the screen is the same, but now the ways that we define it are different. Now, of course, it wouldn't look like this in code. This is just how we can say out loud what the rules are that we're following. So Object 1 and Object 2 are both centered in the super view, with the super view being the white full-size screen of the device. Object 1 is 15 from the super view's top, right, and left edges, and from the top of Object 2. Object 1 is 15 from basically everything around it, including the super view's top, right, and left edges, as well as the top edge of Object 2. Object 2 is also 15 from the super view's bottom edge. Object 2 and Object 1 share the same width. This way we know that they both fit within the screen. And Object 2's height is twice the size of Object 1's height. Now, just looking at this page, there's a lot more words than there were on the previous pages. So isn't this more complicated? Don't you already have to do just as much work as you would have had to do before? Well, not really, because I don't need to know what the size of the screen is. These rules apply no matter what device you're on. So now that we have these auto layout style constraints in place, what happens if we change our device size again? Wow. Okay, great. So it doesn't look the same, but it definitely looks a lot better than what we had before. Both of our objects are still the same width. They're still both centered. They still have that nice 15-point border between each other and the edges of the screen. Object 2 is twice as tall as object 1. So all the constraints are still satisfied. And I think you can imagine that if you were to grab that screen and change the size, that they would just automatically fit themselves to whatever it is. So that's the true power of auto layout. Whether you're designing for 2 different screen sizes or 1,000 or even 1,000,000, the way that we've defined how we want things to appear will work across all of them. Of course, there may be some situations where when you get a tall screen, you do want it to look different, and that's fine. You still have the option of changing the way things are styled for each device, but the important thing is that you're no longer required to. It is optional. So great. Now we know what auto layout does for us. It makes it easy to work across multiple resolutions and screen sizes. Where is auto layout? How do you use it? Well, you can implement it directly in code, and you can read more about that on Apple's website if you choose. But the preferred method, and the method that they recommend as your first choice, is to define constraints using the tools in Xcode's interface builder. And now the nice thing about this is that we won't even have to touch any code. Who is auto... Okay, that's just not an appropriate... How is auto layout? It's great. I like it. Next question. When is auto layout? All right. When is it? It's right now. So follow me. We'll jump over into Xcode. We'll create a new project, and we'll cover the basics of working with auto layout.